Hello, welcome to Live Reality Games. My name is Steven, and I'm back today with another deep dive interview from Surviving Reelfoot, Bluff Ranch, the most recent Reelfoot season that concluded this summer. And I'm with the 11th place finisher, the one, the only Mike Heller. Mike, how are you doing?
I am doing well, Stephen. Thank you for having me.
You've had a very busy summer between work and family and Survivor.
Oh yeah, yeah. Every day when you have kids, two kids under the age of 3, every day is busy. But yeah, squeezing in a Survivor game, which I still have so many thanks that I owe to my wife for letting me get away from, our families to do that. But yeah, every day's busy when you have little kids.
Well, I know you're the person we've been trying to go back and forth figuring out a time, and I'm decided that we finally got together for this. And what's even more interesting is a lot of the people I've talked to, this was like week 1, 2, 3 weeks once the game finished. For you, it's been a little longer, so you've probably had some more time to reminisce and to think about how you played.
Yeah, more time to ruminate on all the mistakes and the pivot points, decision points. If I had done this, what would have happened? Also, more time to forget the details. So hopefully, you'll still get a pretty an insightful interview. I hope I haven't forgotten everything important.
Well, so I think the first place we have to start is the beginning, and the beginning is not pre-Reelfoot. The beginning goes all the way back to 2017 when you and I both played together in what was both of our first live reality games, Pirate Survival Expedition in Illinois. And you came in 10th place. You were the last vote out before the jury began. I was really sad because I was working with you at this time and I did not vote you out. But talk to me, walking out of Pirate Survival Expedition and thinking about that game for the past couple of years, right? What were your takeaways from playing that game?
Well, I think, I had been a lifelong Survivor fan before going into that. And, as much as, those of us who love the show think we know everything about Survivor from watching, I think one of my key takeaways from playing Pirate, which had great production value, great cast, like really, really well designed, put together game, it was very authentic. And walking away from that, I think I learned in playing that how much I didn't know about Survivor just from watching on TV. I've always believed Survivor is one of the greatest games that's ever been created, and I think walking away from Pirate, I learned kind of where I stood in terms of the aspects of Survivor I was good at, the aspects I needed to work on, and just how to kind of figuring out who I am as a player and how I needed to adjust that to be more successful. Because obviously 10th place is not what anybody's aiming for. And to get eliminated right before jury is, that hurts, that stings. So coming out to play again, and I knew when I got back from Pirate, my wife and I found out we were pregnant with our first child, our daughter. And so it was a while before, I knew it was going to be a while before I'd be able to figure out another game to play. But I spent a lot of time in those intervening couple of years thinking about, okay, when I get the chance to play again, what am I going to do differently? How am I going to take the lessons I learned from Pirate and put them into practice so that I can do better. And I know you mentioned before that I didn't really hide Pirate or my experience from it or in it from any of the other players in Reelfoot. And that was, I think that was somewhat strategic. It was also just like, I'm not a very good liar. So trying to cover up past experience, like it just didn't seem worth it. I'd rather be open about it. And use that to my advantage. But I was very open with a lot of the players that I was closest to in Reelfoot that I had played once before. I wasn't happy with the outcome, and I wanted to do better in Reelfoot. And that was my sole, probably my most important goal coming into Reelfoot was just to improve my own game. I definitely didn't come in thinking I'm going to win this. I think Survivor is such a hard game to win, and everything has to work right. You have to play your best game, make as few mistakes as you can, and the stars kind of need to align in your favor. You need to get a little lucky at times. So I just wanted to control what I can control, play a better game than I did in Pirate, and hopefully do better. And I think, I finished 11th in this, which is not better than 10th. But I feel like I played a much better game, and I came away from Reelfoot, I think having checked that box, that I feel like I played a better game. I did do better, even though my stat line wasn't what I wanted it to be.
So you talked a little about how like you thought a lot about what your strong suits were, what your weaknesses were. Walk me through those. Like coming from Pirate, what were the areas you wanted to improve most on?
I think that one of the key things was that I wanted to just take more control over my own like strategic game. I knew that, coming out of Pirate, one of the things that I knew about myself and was reinforced in playing Pirate was that I was able to make great connections, great relationships with total strangers. And, my ability to connect with people, build relationships, and build camaraderie and a sense of teamwork is one of my signature strengths. And so I knew I wanted to put that, to good use. But I didn't, in Pirate, I wasn't very direct and intentional about setting up alliances, making promises. And, I think I came into Reelfoot wanting to be more hands-on with that and move more quickly. And I'm not sure that I accomplished that. I think I still, like in Reelfoot, when we got to our original Carlton tribe, I fell into this mode of like tribe first, like build the team, build loyalty, and forgot, I guess, to do some of the important individual one-on-one stuff to set myself up later, which came back to bite me when it came down to me and Sarah, Justin and Shane in a vote that we didn't want to be in. I was the odd man out there because I hadn't had some of those direct conversations early on in Carlton Tribe. And going into that vote, I didn't know that I was on the outside of that group before, because I guess I hadn't asked enough direct questions and had some of those tough conversations to see where I stood prior to that. So, it's something I wanted to do better that maybe I didn't. And I'll have to try again, next time. I think another thing that I came away from Pirate knowing I needed to do differently was just tone down my competitiveness in challenges and just overall. I can be a pretty intense person, emotionally invested in, whatever the challenge at hand is. And I think that was definitely something that didn't help me in Pirate. People saw me as somebody who was going to fight hard and put my heart into everything. And so they didn't want to let me go very far. So coming into Reelfoot, that was something that I was I think you can see it in my, my welcome video, that I wanted to tone it down and just focus on having fun and keeping things, more lighthearted, giving a lot of high fives, making other people feel good about their contributions, and not getting so just like blood boiling intense in the challenges. And, that's something that I think I did well at times and not at others, but obviously not enough to reduce my threat level, because everybody in Reelfoot, I guess, felt threatened by me for one reason or another, which kind of caught me off guard. But that was definitely something that I learned from Pirate, but couldn't adjust well enough to, make an impact on my game in Reelfoot.
There's looking at your game in Pirate and this Reelfoot, there's some fun parallels that I'll kind of point out later. I'm getting some questions from your original cast, which is exciting, and I'm going to seed those into our conversation as we get to them. So for all of you who posted questions, we definitely get them, just maybe not immediately. So you apply for Reelfoot, you get in. You've thought a lot about your Pirate survival game. How else were you preparing for Reelfoot?
Oh, great question. Well, I I guess all of the ways, I think some very common ways that other players were doing as well. I went out and got a flint and steel, worked on my fire making skills. It's something that I was comfortable with, but hadn't done in a couple years. So wanted to shake the cobwebs off there. Definitely started to just devour as many puzzles as I could, do a lot of like online sliders, word puzzles, Sudoku, just to get my brain in problem solving mode. And again, like shake off the cobwebs. Mm-hmm. And then I didn't from a physical standpoint, I didn't like work out or train much. But I did try to like stretch a lot in the weeks leading up to the game, just because I'm like, I'm almost 40. I didn't want to, go out there and get injured. And then I guess the last thing that I did to really prepare was just to watch as much Survivor as I could in the few weeks leading up to the game, and just like take notes on some of my favorite players' games and some of the mistakes they made, and just kind of get my head in the game in that sense. So I watched like 5 or 6 seasons of Survivor in the month before Reelfoot, just to kind of brush up.
So you've played Pirates of Alex Edition. You've also played Home for the Holidays in 2019, Travis Riddler's Big Brother style game. Mm-hmm. Were you thinking about what you do if you encounter people you knew in the game? Was that something that crossed your mind?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was going in, I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook, and I'm not super active in like a lot of the, the online community. I'm not particularly good at following other games or like who's in what game or who's played with who, but I know that community is, vibrant and active, and that there was a good chance going in that I would see somebody I knew, a lot of people I didn't. And I guess like my thought going in was that I may see some people that I know, and that I would try to, if I did, just immediately kind of downplay that, act like I didn't know anybody, and then just kind of look for an opportunity to one-off with anybody I did know at the right time, and be like, hey, I'm so excited that you're here. And I did end up, running into some people that I knew from my experience in Holidays. So there definitely were a couple familiar faces, but mostly, new people, new strangers, new friends.
Well, let's get into it. So that very first opening day of Reelfoot, right? You get there around noon, and there's this opening lunch kind of meet and greet. You and the other castmates are all there. The game hasn't begun yet, but it sort of has, even though you don't know what the tribe divisions will be like at all. Talk me through that.
Yeah. So I had I rode from the airport with Chris, and we weren't supposed to talk in the car, so there wasn't a lot. By the way, what's that?
Chris has nice shirt.
Oh yeah, I've wore this specially for you, Chris. I want to see Baby Jack in his version soon too. But yeah, I rode to the game with Chris. Weren't allowed to talk much, so still, hadn't really talked to anybody. And then we walked up, and I think we were the last two to arrive, other than Taylor, who got there a little bit later than us. So we walk in, and everybody's like sitting around the couches in the lodge. And, like you said, the game hadn't started yet, but you could just feel that energy, like it has begun, and people are talking, and who's sitting next to who. And, there was just this energy of like excitement. But everybody's also kind of like, looking around, like, what do I do? Who, how am I supposed to act? Because everybody's watching you walk through the door and sizing you up immediately. And so, walking in, I just tried to be friendly and smile a lot and shake hands and talk to as many people as I could, and not spend too much time with anybody, but just kind of keep bouncing around. Get really just getting a sense for some of the basics, like name, where you're from, how old are you, so that I could, circle back later and be like, hey, it was, I remember your name, and we're a little bit about where you're from before, like, let's talk more, start to build those relationships. But super exciting to walk in and see a ton of people I didn't know. because that's kind of one of the most exciting things about these games is to test, your mettle against other super fans and to get that authentic experience of playing a game with people you've never met until you like day one on the beach. So there was definitely that feel to it as well.
So any notable first impressions or conversations you had?
Yeah, I mean, I think, gosh, I'm trying to think back. It's been a while yet. I know like Frank made a big impression on me from day one. He just had like these big crystal clear, beautiful eyes and just this really like calming demeanor. And I just remember talking to him and thinking, okay, this guy's going to be pretty dangerous. I don't know, in that series of conversations, like the meet and greet, nobody really stood out to me as somebody that was threatened by, except maybe Todd, just because he was massive. Love you, Todd. But a big, imposing guy and like, a teddy bear, sweet as sugar, like super easy to talk to. So, you're sizing people up, but not really sure what to make of anybody until you're able to, actually, talk. But everybody's pretty guarded in that first conversation.
So there are eventually 3 people that you will see that you know of or in some capacity, right? First off, you have Jerica. You played Pirate Survival Expedition with her, and she kind of owed you off. You also played with her in Home for the Holidays.
Correct.
You see Taylor, who you also play with for Home for the Holidays, who won your season. And then you see Carlos, who you helped host in a future season of Home for the Holidays, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So I played with Jerica twice. I played with Taylor once, and then I had met Carlos, but never played with him. So yeah, that's all correct for sure. And go ahead.
Any surprise, shocks, revelations, or did you talk to them at all in that luncheon?
Yeah. So I was the last time Taylor and I had talked about Reelfoot prior to seeing her walk through the door was like a year and a half before the game started. I think it was as holiday season 3 was ending and we were getting ready to like leave Travis's house. I think I said like something along the lines of, when are you gonna play another game, or what are you thinking of? And she mentioned Reelfoot, and I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Had no real intentions of applying for it at that point, but we kind of never talked about it again after that. I think we both knew like, okay, there's a chance maybe we'll both apply for this, but don't want to spoil anything ahead of time. So when I saw her walk through the door, I was really excited because she was somebody I knew. I love Taylor. She's a great friend. I knew I could trust her, that she would help me with my game. And as long as we could figure out a way for, nobody to really catch wise that we were tight beforehand, that would be a great thing. And then, was excited to see Jerica. I love Jerica. She's an awesome person. I've had fun playing with her every time we've played together. And, again, just like with Jerica and Carlos, tried to like keep my distance. In our first conversations, like, hi, I'm Mike, what's your name? And try to, make it really obvious that, or, be, unassuming in the sense that like other people watching us, meet for the first time wouldn't think that we had met. And so kind of kept those conversations short and quick. Oh, it's nice to meet you. And then kind of move on, hoping they would get the drift that like, we'll catch up later when we have more time.
So after the luncheon, you get divided into your tribes and you end up being on the Carlton tribe, the Red tribe. Talk me through that very first night. The tribe dynamics, if there were anything, who are you talking to, who you want to work with?
Yeah, well, there was a lot of conversation about this in the game, the different dynamics between those first 2 tribes. Ours was just fit together like clockwork. There was a chemistry to that original Carlton group that I don't know, it's hard to account for. It just happens with some groups of people. Everybody, we got back to our camp and everybody was just really excited to be there. You had like people like, I think all of us were on the same page that we're just kind of nerding out about the experience. I remember like Amanda was just super excited about everything camp related and getting the camp set up, and but everybody was like, we all just kind of fell into our roles in getting a sleeping area together, getting the fire ring together, gathering wood. Everybody was really excited to work together to make it a great camp, so that we could be a great tribe and be successful together. So there was a lot of like teamwork and chemistry, and not a lot of like scrambling or sneaking around. It was just very cohesive, and that really kind of stayed that way for quite a while before before divisions started to form.
Mm-hmm. So I'd like to kind of ask you about two different players and your relationship with them, and at least at the very end of this first day, at the start of the game. Let's talk about Justin first, right? Because you end up being almost his sole black mark on his Reelfoot series is thanks to you. Right? Which you can say, to your credit, you tried to take out the winner, and like you did everything you could. But talk to me about your relationship with Justin at the start of the game.
Yeah, I think Justin is somebody that I was just immediately impressed by. I think that there was a little bit of an unspoken connection. I think we saw each other as I don't know, like as equals, as competition for each other for sure, but also like somebody else that was on the same level, and that I think we both saw our games overlapping a lot from minute one. But Justin's great, and looking back on it, I'm so proud of him for the game that he played, and for ultimately winning the season. He was definitely somebody that I saw as having a great chance to win from day one, and I wanted to stay close to him because I don't know, I really enjoyed being around him and talking to him and playing with him, and at the same time I also recognized that he was somebody who was good at an aspect of the game that I wasn't, which was crunching the numbers, the strategy, the round by round strategy, and specifically around numbers and voting. I knew being close to Justin would help me because he was smarter than me. So, kind of friends close, enemies closer kind of thing. But yeah, he was definitely somebody that I wanted to work with as much as I could, but was very leery of it at the same time.
Mm-hmm. So the other person I want to talk to you about is Taylor, right? Because I think of all the players on this original Cardinal Tribe, you end up having the closest relationship with her, right? I don't know if do you think that was something you were intending to have happen, or just kind of fell into that?
Yeah, so I think I think Taylor and I knew as soon as we saw each other there that we I don't know, I just knew from day one, like, Taylor's not going to do anything to hurt my game, not intentionally anyway, and I'm not going to do anything to hurt her game either. So I think it was just an unspoken connection, and something that's kind of rare in a Survivor game, but can be very good to have if you have an ally that you trust a lot, that nobody else knows about, and you can keep that quiet. That's something that can help you a lot as the game develops and progresses, and people start sharing information with some people, but not others. It's a great way to be in multiple conversations at the same time. And that was, I think, how Taylor and I helped each other out a lot at the beginning, was we were able to be everywhere without, having to be in every conversation. So if I knew that Taylor was back at camp while I was away with somebody else, that if something was said or my name was brought up, I would hear about it. And so that gives you a lot of peace of mind, knowing and freedom to get up and walk away, knowing that there's somebody there that you trust who's going to fill you in on whatever is said when you're gone. So we helped each other a lot in that sense. And then obviously as the game progressed, she helped me a lot in some other significant ways too. but yeah, definitely Taylor was my strongest ally, most important partner in the game. Yeah, from day one.
So day 2 is the day that you have several reward challenges, and it culminates with the immunity challenge your tribe wins. Is there anything about these challenges you want to talk about?
Yeah, so the reward challenges, yeah, I mean, I think that those first couple reward challenges that Carlton won, we got a little bit of a streak going, and I think this is super important for how the whole game plays out, that those challenges went the way that they did, because as we started to win back-to-back challenges in original Carlton Tribe, and we're feeling this chemistry and we have this teamwork thing going on, I think it created an atmosphere of, like, we really wanted, there was an authentic, sincere desire for that group, Carlton, to succeed together, to decimate the other tribe and go far as a big group. That idea was formed in that stretch of challenges, where we saw that we had the potential to really, really dominate. And so, reward challenges typically aren't super important, but I think the fact that we won several of those, I think 3 of the first 4, it brought us together in a way that really formed, or that really impacted how, some of the votes, and especially after we got to the merge, some of the dynamics between the 2 original tribes really had their roots in that kind of stretch of success that Carlton had at the beginning.
During this period, you learn about the existence of the surplus store, as well as an in-game currency, Reelfoot bucks, or I forget the exact name they're called. This isn't your first experience with an in-game currency. In Pirate Survival, we had this piece of gold that you end up being able to bid for immunity at Tribal Council. Walk with your initial thoughts, learning that this is a twist in your season, how you were going to deal with
it. Yeah, well, I was kind of hoping there wouldn't be any currency, because the pirate, in Pirate, we were finding gold coins all the time, and I made several mistakes, I think, that in Pirate that were rooted in that currency twist. In that one, I was able to convince enough people to share coins with me to purchase immunity, which you're familiar with, and it cost my good friend Pete his life in the game. So I think in Pirate, I focused too much on the coins and hoarding them. Even in the very first challenge of that, I don't know if you remember, Stephen, but we had to run out and find items to bring back to our tribe.
Yep.
And I was one of the ones that grabbed a bag of coins, and then I kept them for myself. Anyway,
that's awesome.
But I in Reelfoot, I kind of chose to not think too much about the currency. Or I don't know if it was a choice, but I didn't think very much about it. We'll just say that. I never went to, I don't think I ever went to the surplus store except when I was prisoner of war. And I had to go. So I never chose to go on my own to see if there was an advantage. I was more focused on, much more focused on my interactions with my tribe mates and being part of the conversations. I never wanted to get up and leave and go to the store and leave my tribe behind. So yeah, I didn't think much about it in this game.
So by the end of day 2, your tribe wins the first immunity challenge, but at this point, Lydia is shaping up to be the first target for your tribe, correct?
Yeah, and that was really unfortunate, because Lydia, I would say, was the person from original Carlton, other than Taylor, and I was keeping my distance from Taylor, but Lydia was the person that I had, I think, the most chemistry with, and the person I wanted to play with the most. And she was, just the way she was acting around camp that first day, it was a combination of, her not feeling well, and kind of needing to just take some time to be by herself and feel better so that she could play the game. But it was a combination of that, and then her, desire to like play the game and get on with like the strategy talk. She wanted there to be more of that going on than there was. And there hadn't been a catalyst or a vote or anything to like really get that stuff going. And so I think, you know, between her not feeling well, her wishing we were being more strategic, and her going off and looking for idols on that first day, she kind of set herself apart from the rest of the group. And that put me in a tough position because I wanted her to be part of my plans, but her name started to emerge as that easy first vote off. Like, well, I guess Lydia's on the outside because she's off and doing this, or she's not feeling well. There's like a number of the classic reasons why you look for a first vote, a first boot,
Mm-hmm.
you know, looking for the idol, not feeling well. Like there was a number of them all happening at the same time. So that sucked because there was nothing I could really do to stick my neck out that early with this group of people to try to steer the vote away from Lydia. And at the time, the only other person that could have maybe gotten consensus would have been Taylor because she had hurt her knee. Yeah. So I didn't want that to be the alternate outcome. And so I just kind of got quiet and pulled back. You know, let it happen the way that it was going to happen. But yeah, she was the first person to leave original Carlton.
In true hindsight, looking back in the game, if you had the social clout to push for any person to go, what would have been best for your game as a first boot, given that you wanted to work with both Taylor and Lydia?
That's a good question. I haven't really thought about that in that sense. But I think that you know, at the time, mm-hmm. if there was anybody that I would have wanted to push for to be first, it would have been Sarah. And I did put out some feelers with a couple other players to see if that seemed like it would be an option. But you know, wasn't getting any traction there. But I think that if I could have, you know, used some social capital and gotten Sarah out there, we still would have been a pretty strong tribe in terms of challenges and cohesiveness. And, you know, looking ahead to like the round where Justin, Shane, and Sarah voted me out and I had to play the idol to stay alive, maybe that would have gone differently if Sarah had been gone and somebody else had been there instead. But, you know,
so
who knows?
Why Sarah exactly?
I think that, you know, Sarah was kind of one of the, I underestimated Sarah is my reason. I underestimated Sarah early on in the sense that she was very well integrated into the rest of Carlton. And I didn't see it. I didn't notice it until it was too late. So, you know, I think for me, Sarah was one of those players who I underestimated. I didn't pay enough attention to, and that came back to bite me. So I think, you know, if Sarah goes a little bit earlier, my relationships with some of the other original Carlton members are a little bit stronger when they need to be, potentially.
So day 3 begins. Lydia's the prisoner of war. Aaron goes home. Your tribe then wins the next immunity challenge, right? You're on a roll. And this time you get to be the prisoner of war.
Yeah.
So what talk me through this experience of going to the surplus store for the first time and then going to the other camp, and after hearing what happened to Lydia, to tell me all about this.
Yeah, so, you know, Lydia had come back from being the first prisoner of war and had just had a really negative, like, horrible experience. I guess they were, and everybody since, you know, apologized and cleared this all up. They were really mean to her. And so that's the only thing that we knew about the other group, was that they were kind of a mess and that they had been mean to one of our tribe mates. So then I remember just really not wanting to be that prisoner of war. But, you know, drawing the rock as like a torrential downpour was starting was, I don't know, it's not what I wanted, but I made the best of it. So when I went to the original Rutherford camp as prisoner of war, it's it's like the heaviest rain I've ever experienced in my life. Nobody is really thinking much about strategy. It's just like trying to stay dry and deal with your miserable circumstances. But I just went in like friendly, curious. I tried to talk to everybody. I guess my purpose going into that camp was to try to stir the pot and stir up as much drama as possible. And so, there were two names being talked about for that vote. I think it was Carlos and Nikki. And so I was walking around saying, like, telling everybody what everybody else had been saying in the discussions for that vote. And, there was definitely I would walk up and everybody would get quiet. And, it would be awkward. But if somebody told me a name, I would go and tell other people, like, well, Jerica said we're voting for Nikki, and try to just, stir the pot a little bit. And then I told Nikki as we were leaving the tribe camp to go to tribal council, I told her that her name had come up. And I think that was the first that she had heard of it. So I was trying to give her a little bit of an opportunity to scramble and see if she could, pull something off there. But yeah, just caused chaos and made the most of it. And tried to get a little bit of insight on the tribe to take back to mine.
So who'd you end up giving the idol clue to?
I gave it to Carlos, and I figured that I remember I had a paper clue, and I put it in his shoe, and then I was helping him get water moved away from the 1 6-inch dry spot in the camp. And I whispered to him that I had put it in his shoe, and I gave it to Carlos just because he was the person on that trial. I had already heard his name come up. He was somebody that I did know before the game started, so I didn't want to see him get eliminated. So if there was something I could do to help him, I was going to do it.
When you were at the surplus store, was there advantage to buy available for you?
When I was there was no advantage. There was a clue to the idol that I could leave on the table or take to give to the other tribe. I was allowed to read it before I had to deliver it to anybody. But for that round, there were no other advantages. No.
It ends up being a very close vote, right? Nikki goes home in a 5-4 vote. You voted with Nikki. Do you have any regrets of that vote? Do you wish you voted for Nikki instead of with Nikki?
No. So I basically, this is one of several examples of me, I don't know, overthinking things or trying to outsmart the game and ending up looking stupid. I gave the clue to Carlos because I wanted to help Carlos and wanted to work with Carlos. I also voted for Carlos there. Yeah. And that was, I think in hindsight, it was a little arrogant because from what I was hearing from that tribe, Nikki was going home. And that was pretty clear. It didn't seem like it was as close as it ended up being. And so my vote for Carlos was kind of a risky way to stir the pot even further. I didn't want Carlos to go there. I didn't think he was going home. And so I thought my vote was a way to just cast doubt within that group about who voted for who and why there was an extra vote for Carlos. Ended up not having much of an impact, and Carlos, didn't go home. So, yeah, but it was kind of pointless in the end.
Did you end up having any good one-on-one conversations with any of the Rutherford tribe members while you were there? Was that something that happened, or with the rain, it was hard to have one-on-one conversations?
It was super hard to have one-on-one conversations. I remember having a short but nice conversation with Todd about just about being a parent. We both have daughters, so we were talking about that. There was one. I went off kind of looking for the idol, and Frank followed me, and we had a quick, a pretty quick but fun little strategic conversation, kind of agreeing to work together at the merge if we got to that point. But no, I mean, really, it was a fast round, and the rain lasted pretty much the whole time, so it was hard to focus on anything else.
Chris has a comment here that your vote actually had an impact. Carlos thought that Chris cast that vote for him, and that caused Carlos and Chris to have a rift the rest of the game. So I think you did have more of an impact than you thought there.
Cool. Not sure if it helps me long term, but that's great.
And something else from Frank, he wants to know, did your pants come in and are they comfortable?
So I'm still waiting for the right style, Frank. I haven't actually ordered any yet, but I definitely will. And as soon as I do, you will get a picture, I promise.
So Nikki ends up going home in a 5-4 vote. It's the next immunity challenge. Your tribe finally loses the immunity challenge. Do you want to talk about that challenge at all?
Yeah. So after that, if I'm remembering correctly, that was the challenge that so after that vote is when Carlos wait, is that when he mutinied?
No, so we're in the pre-merge. We're in the pre-swap. This is the vote where Lydia goes home 8-2, and Skylar is the prisoner of war.
Right. Yeah. So Skylar, I don't remember what the challenge was. I'm sorry.
I don't remember either because I actually missed watching the challenge of the first day, so I simply know the results. But we can talk about the strategy. So your tribe loses. Talk about was there a lot of scrambling going on here? Because we already spoke a little about Lydia had kind of cemented herself as that first boot through tribe, and you yourself were very unwilling to push against that because that would probably mean the target going to Taylor.
Yeah. Yeah. And Justin had pulled me aside at one point and told me that I needed to be careful going off with Lydia because Lydia had kind of like set herself apart from the rest of the group. And I had been seen talking to her a lot. And so, he was giving me the heads up that there was chatter about just us being associated together. And it could hurt me if, Lydia went first. And then they needed an excuse for a second vote. It could easily, come against me. So I really tried to, as that vote was going down, just kind of stay with the group and not push for anything, and just kind of go along with what we knew was the consensus.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the consensus happens. Lydia goes home 8-2. We ran out the day with one more immunity challenge. Your tribe wins. This is the vote where Jericho goes home, and so we end day 3. You have to look at this tribe, right? You've only lost one member, so it's kind of fantastic, right? Lydia's gone. At this point, did you have any formal alliances taking shape in your tribe, or who were you trusting more than others?
Yeah. Well, I had a formal alliance with Taylor, and then I felt like I had, I guess like I had my formal alliance with Taylor, but I didn't have anything rock solid with anybody else. Nothing that we had shaken hands on or agreed to. And I think, I was feeling good about the relationships I was building. I felt good with Amanda. I felt good with Justin. I didn't feel as close to like Shane and Sarah, but I felt really great about Ronnie. I was kind of feeling like I was in good with everybody, and I didn't need to like scramble and make deals because I felt really well positioned. So yeah, I don't know.
And do you regret not trying to make something more formal happen between you and some other players?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think looking back, I wish that Ronnie and I were, Ronnie basically told me right about this time in the game that he would never vote for me. And I knew that we were tight, but we didn't shake on anything. What I really wish I probably would have done differently would be to have made something more formal and direct with Justin, Um, and I think that would have helped me maybe when when some of the drama happened later on. But I don't know. I was just feeling good and like in the moment, and
Mm-hmm.
you get into this mode, like you get into game mode, and it's hard to think about everything that you need to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Like you get caught up in the game and the pace of it. And it can be tough to stop and think about, what should I be doing right now instead of just going with the flow.
Mm-hmm. One player I'd like to talk a little about here that I haven't mentioned at all is Kenny. What are your thoughts on Kenny? Were you working with him at all?
Yeah, I was definitely like hoping to work with Kenny. I loved Kenny. I loved his energy. I love everything about Kenny. He was hilarious. Like he was certainly like one of the one of the strongest members of our tribe. And one of the, I think the elements that really helped all of us come together was just like Kenny making us laugh.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we did, Kenny and I had a number of things in common. We were both like altar boys back in the day, Catholic Church. And so we had like the Altar Boy Alliance. It never really, helped us much, I guess. Kenny was somebody I wanted to work with, but everybody just kind of saw him as sort of like kind of aloof and, not ever really wanting to talk game
Mm-hmm.
very much. And so, when somebody's not talking game with you or to other people, then all you can really do is question what their motives are there. And so it was hard to like really trust that Kenny was going to be a great strategic partner, even though I loved him and wanted to play with him. Nothing much like really came of that strategically.
Is there a world where you have an alliance of you, Kenny, Ronnie, Taylor, and Lydia come together for the former majority in your tribe?
That sounds great. In hindsight, Stephen, I don't know why I didn't think about that at the time. But yeah, I think that could have been possible. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like Shane, Justin, Amanda made you feel just really good with working with them and staying with them at this point.
Yeah, I think that I think that to go back to what we were talking about before, some of us felt like if we kept the right group of people together, we could go to like the final seven with 7 Carlton members. And I think all of those people, Shane and Justin and Amanda, had like they were making me feel good, but I think it was more about at the time like a perceived strength.
Mm-hmm.
They were strong tribe mates, and I felt like we could go far together.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wasn't thinking. I wasn't thinking 2 moves ahead like I should have been.
Well, speaking of 2 moves ahead, the next day, day 4, you open with a swap. And this swap, on first glance, seems to be amazing for you, right? You end up swapping to Rutherford 2.0, but you bring with you a good chunk of Carlton, right? So the only people from the other tribe who end up coming with you are Skylar and Carlos.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
what were your thoughts here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously relieved to be in the majority after a swap. Nobody wants to get swap screwed and end up in the minority. I think that one of my first thoughts was worry for Taylor because she had ended up in the minority in her new tribe. So I was concerned about that and what that would mean. But yeah, I mean, I think when you look around and see that you have a majority in a new small tribe,
Mm-hmm.
it felt great. It made me feel like I was safe until the merge. As long as we could win, as long as we didn't like get totally steamrolled in the immunity challenges, like we would be fine.
Well, the first meeting challenge happens and doesn't quite work out for you. You all end up losing and getting the tribal council. This is when Todd's the prisoner of war and Skylar ends up being the vote going out. Walk me through the strategy that what happened here.
Yeah. So let's see. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember how that all played out. Yeah. So
did you care which one went home at that point?
Not really. I think I'm trying to remember how Skylar emerged as I think that there was some fear that Todd may have an idol.
Founded.
And so I think that it kind of ended up working out that way because it was like just the path of least resistance or the least risk. But that's all I really remember about it.
Something I want to ask about. So, like, I forgot to mention. So, Jericho going home. That's the first of the three people that you kind of know leaving the game, right? So did you were like, this is good? This is one less connection I have to worry about, or I don't know, what were your thoughts on Jericho going home at the time?
I remember thinking that, I felt bad for Jerica because I know she cares a lot about these games, and so it sucked to see her get voted out. But I remember kind of feeling a little bit of relief that there was one less person in the game who I did know beforehand, and so it was one less situation that I had to try to kind of keep quiet and cover up. So as sad as I was to see Jerica leave, it made my game a little less complicated, I think.
And so with Skylar out of the way, were you trying to cultivate any sort of relationship or alliance with Carlos in the game, or was he just a dead man walking and you're just like, sorry, dude?
No, I mean, I very much I wanted to get to a point post merge that Carlos and I were both still very much in the game and could help each other without making it obvious before the merge that we knew each other, were working together, we're talking to each other. So yeah, I wanted Carlos to stick around a lot longer than he did. But I guess it just didn't work out that way.
I mean, if you weren't going to vote out Carlos next, would you be pushing for Kenny at that point? Like, what would you have done?
Yeah, I mean, so in that with that group, I think my thought at the time was that I just wanted to make sure we won immunity because I didn't want to have to vote in that sense. I don't think, I don't think I was going into that round thinking that if we lost immunity, I was going to be able to save Carlos. I don't remember feeling like that was a possibility. It was just we need to win this next immunity, and I thought we had a really good shot at doing that until Carlos, mutinied and switched to the other tribe. Well, and that was kind of like, I don't know, that was a little bit of an oh shit moment. But that might have actually, was that the next round after this?
Yes, the next round your tribe wins immunity. So part one of your plan complete. Part two probably included someone from your original Carlton tribe being the prisoner of war, but it was not to be. Carlos ends up being the prisoner of war, leaving just you and the 4 other original Carlton members at your tribe. Did you have any thoughts on this moment?
Well, I think this was the moment where I started to realize that I was on the bottom of that group. Yeah, I don't remember specifically what it was. It was just like the little things that you pick up on, the little cues at camp and in conversations. But I mean, it wasn't really until Kenny was gone that I knew I was the next to go, but I was definitely starting to get nervous at this point.
Yeah, because essentially you get to that third challenge of the day. Carlos is like, peace, I'm out. He mutinies to their tribe, leaving just the 5 original Carltons. So like what ended up was first a blessing is now kind of look like a curse. You lose the challenge. It's a shock immediately tribal council. This is a very emotional tribal council for you and everyone else as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I was crying when we lost that challenge because I knew that it was Kenny, and it just broke my heart. I think it broke all of our hearts. He's just a great guy. None of us wanted to see his game end or wanted to be the ones that were the reason that his game ended. And it was just sad. It was just really sad. I think that was It was one of the most emotional moments in the game, and I think it was like a wake up moment for everybody, that we really did want to go as far as possible with that original Carlton group, and that was like, I guess that's when that dream was kind of shattered. That this isn't going to happen that way, and we actually have to vote out somebody that we really truly care about. And a game is a game, but you do really form intense relationships of trust and companionship with each other, and that's how it was with Kenny for, I think, all of us. And so to know that it was his turn to go was really, really sad.
So when you said, like, I kind of realized this on the bottom of this point, was it literally when you received the vote from Kenny with your name on it, or was it like slightly before, slightly after?
Yeah. No, I think it was, I was starting to think that was probably the case. But when I saw that Kenny voted for me, that really bothered me. Not in any sense that I was mad at Kenny, but it was like, yeah, it definitely got me thinking. Like, I never would have thought ahead of that Kenny would have tried to vote me out, or was trying to vote me out. I think Kenny and I, were tight and wanted to work together, and that was sincere. But when I saw that he had voted for me, that told me that from his perception, from his perspective, that I was the other possible option, right? That if there was anybody he could vote for to save himself, it was me. And that's when I really realized, like, holy crap, like, he thinks that, in order to save himself, his best chance is to vote for me. So he must think that, like, Sarah and Shane and Justin would have been open to voting for me over him. And so, yeah, that was definitely something that made it a little bit more clear where I stood with the rest of the group.
Now, were you scrambling or doing anything or talking to anyone between that tribal council and the next challenge?
Between that tribal council when Kenny was voted out, and the next challenge. So when, oh man, I feel like there was, did we have like all that night?
So what'll happen is Kenny goes home. You do the next community challenge, and that's the block stacking kind of balance endurance challenge, right? Your tribe loses that. You then have all night. The next one, Taylor joins as prisoner of war. She gives you the idol, and then you go to tribal council and you idol at Justin. So so we can start from losing immunity challenge. So you lose the balance, the immunity challenge, right? And probably begins one of the longest nights of your life. Yeah.
So losing that challenge. Losing that challenge was frustrating, because I knew that I could win it. I felt really good. I was locked in. I was focused. Those balance challenges like that it's all about focus and not losing it. And I felt really good. I had one, like, all of my tribe mates, dropped out, and I was the last person holding us up. And I felt really good. I had at one point almost dropped all my blocks and had a really epic save, that even when I go back and watch it now, I'm like, wow, that was really good. But it wasn't enough. I think if I could have held out a little bit longer, I would have at least beaten Taylor. But both Taylor and Carlos ended up beating me from the other tribe in that one. So yeah, we lost that. And I guess, like, my mission at that point was, I thought that it was going to be possible to convince Justin and Shane to vote Sarah out. But I also wanted to do everything I could to try to find the Rutherford idol if I could, because I knew that I was in trouble there. At that point, I knew that Justin and Shane were tight and were sticking together no matter what. But I really, really thought that I was going to be able to convince them to keep me over Sarah. And the argument that I made, I thought, was a really good and logical one, that At that point, much had been said about me being such a big threat and a perceived threat. And so I thought, for these two guys who are both great players in their own right, are both really smart players in their own right, keeping me in the game as a meat shield and somebody that's going to take, keep a target off of their backs seemed like a no-brainer. Looking back on it, I realize now that they thought they knew that they could count on Sarah's vote, or they felt like they could count on Sarah's vote post-merge more than they could count on mine. And it came down to loyalty. And, Justin and Shane never believed me when I was telling them that I hadn't found the idol. They were convinced that I had when I had not. And so I think that there was like, they distrusted me a little bit for whatever reason. And they trusted me less than Sarah, which is what that one came down to. But I definitely made my case emotionally, intensely, and aggressively with all three of them. And I made my pitch with each of them individually and with Shane and Justin as a twosome to try to keep me there. Because that night and all of the next morning, it's a shame that some of those conversations aren't on video, because they're intense, they're emotionally raw, and they're me really making my pitch to stay in the game. But I'm doing everything I can because I know that the vote is coming my way. And I have no recourse. I have nothing to save myself. I couldn't find the Rutherford idol. I couldn't find the Carlton idol before we left camp. And so, my thought at that time was that literally any prisoner of war or no prisoner of war helps me. If Amanda comes over, I realize that she's going to vote with them, to keep Sarah and get rid of me. I don't know. Ronnie might, come over at that point and help me out. But I knew that Taylor was the only prisoner of war that I could really count on to help save me. And so when I saw her walking up, I felt, after all of these exhaustive attempts to try to convince them to keep me, which I could feel were not working, I thought when I saw her that I actually had a chance.
So before you continue,
yeah.
Had Shane, Justin, or Sarah formally told you we're just writing your name down? Had that happened before Taylor arrived?
No, it hadn't. But it was also what wasn't being said.
It was unspoken at that point for you?
Yeah, I think I was going to what I was getting from Justin was basically you need to talk to Shane. You need to convince Shane. I will vote to keep you, but he was kind of making it clear that they were a package deal. And then when I would talk to Shane, it was well, Shane, it's Sarah, right? You guys are going to vote to keep me. And he was very much unable to commit, unwilling to commit and tell me just directly, yeah, you're safe. He wouldn't do it. And so I knew that he was leaning towards voting to get rid of me. It felt like he was still considering it, he was considering both options. But he wasn't telling me that I was safe, and so I knew I wasn't.
So Taylor arrives. This has to be the best thing you because you've had a pretty awful 12 hours or however long it's been at this point, and she's here. What happens?
So Taylor walks up, and I'm trying to hold in my excitement and not make it super clear that I feel this massive sense of relief after all of these emotional pleas. She kind of talks to everybody and then starts, we don't have a whole lot of time, so we start the one-on-ones. And when I pulled her aside, I basically just told her right away, it's me. The three of them are voting for me. If you can convince Justin to vote with the two of us, then we can vote out Sarah. Or if you can convince Justin or Shane, or if you can convince Sarah to turn and if the two of us stick together and we pull one of them, we can try to make something happen. So then she goes and talks to the three of them, and then comes back to find me. And this is when she tells me that she found the idol at the original Carlton idol and was giving it to me. And I was just like simultaneously like super proud of her for finding the idol, ecstatic that she had it, that she was willing to give it to me, that I knew we were playing the game together and we're trying to help each other out. But that's like next level loyalty, to give somebody else your idol, just to know that I was that important to her game, that she would use something that powerful to save me. It meant a lot. And then she gave it to me with the stipulation that she said it has to be Justin, and nobody can know that I gave you this. So everybody has to think that you found it. And I had no problem with the condition that I keep that a secret, that she gave it to me. That was no problem. There was no question for me there. It did create, it put me in a tough position with like Justin and Shane specifically, because I had told them profusely that I had not found the idol at Carlton camp. And all of the times they interrogated me and they're like, you found it, right? You found it, right? I'm like, no, I did not find it. I was telling the truth in all of those conversations, but now having to pretend like I had actually found it at original Carlton, it made all of those true conversations that I had with them into lies. So I hadn't been lying to them, but now all of a sudden they felt like I was. When I played the idol. So, that was one element to it, but I didn't have a problem with that. When Taylor said it had to be Justin, I didn't, for a split second, I thought, okay, like she says it has to be Justin, but she's not even going to be there when the votes are read as prisoner of war. She's going to get up and leave before the votes are read. Ultimately, she's going to know what happened, but it is my decision whose name I write down. So I could go along with what she's saying and honor that. I mean, she's giving me an idol. I should do what she's asking me to do. But part of me did consider changing that up. Ultimately, though, I felt like she was right in the sense that, like, Justin was a great player. I thought he had an amazing chance to win. I didn't see that he was somebody that I was going to get a whole lot of chances to take a shot at. I had some conversations with other people where I tried to casually kind of mention that I thought Justin was really smart, or that he was he's the actual leader of the Carlton camp. I told a lot of people that. I was the perceived leader, but I felt like he was actually the leader, and I wanted to draw attention to that. And just, it didn't feel like anybody ever really picked up on any of those vibes. And so, like, while I was trying to get some traction for the whole Justin is a threat storyline, I couldn't get it going. So, to have that opportunity to just take him out, it felt like really the only thing that made sense. In hindsight, I wish that I would have written Shane's name down. And taken Shane out there, because I think a couple things. Hindsight's 20/20, but if I had eliminated Shane, I think Justin said one of his strengths was cornhole and accuracy, and then the comeback challenge ends up being throwing bags. So as soon as we saw what that challenge was, I knew Justin was coming back in. In hindsight, I'd rather have put Shane in that challenge and had a better chance of that person not coming back. I also think if Shane had left, I had a better chance of continuing to work with Justin after that. But again, like, all of this happens really, really fast, and when your heart is pounding and you're playing an idol to save yourself, in spite of the three people who just wouldn't pick up on any of your arguments and wouldn't work with you. It's hard to like think clearly and rationally about all the possible outcomes. So I don't regret writing Justin's name down. It felt like the right move at the time, the only move to make at the time. But looking back on it, I think Shane would have been a better play.
So a couple other questions for you. You told them that you found the original Carson idol. That was the lie you told everyone. Did you ever think of saying, no, I actually found the Rutherford idol and said, I found it this morning. Like, I was desperate. And I just finally found it. Is that something that you thought of trying to say instead?
I think it didn't really cross my mind. I think like all of us were out there looking for that Rutherford idol together, me and Justin and Shane. And it felt really obvious that somebody from original Rutherford had found it. Like the
30
clues
minutes,
weren't
maybe?
that tricky for the Rutherford idol. Like it was pretty obvious where it was, and there was nothing there. So I think like if the clues had been a little bit more nuanced, or we weren't sure where it was, maybe I would have felt like that was more of an option, but it didn't seem plausible.
And so one of the questions from Justin said, so like looking back, once you had the idol, did you ever think of coming to him or saying, Shane or Sarah, any of those three, and saying, hey, I have the idol. I'm going to play because I know you're voting for me, but I want you to vote with me. So that way, instead of being a 3-1 on you, maybe it's a 2-2 or even a 3-1 on someone else. You waste the idol, maybe, but at least you don't have everyone voting for you and you're all kind of on the same boat.
Right. And so this was Justin's thing. In the game too, is like, when he thought that I had it prior to the vote, like before, Justin found out that Taylor had given it to me right before that vote. That was his perspective. Like, why did you lie about it? Why didn't you just tell me we had it? If you had told me and Shane that you had the idol, we could, like, I guess they would have been more inclined to work with me at that point and wanting to stay close to that power. I guess what Justin's asking now is, like, in the very short window of time between Taylor giving me the idol and us actually going to tribal, it would have just been the walk from camp to tribal. I don't know. I could have said, hey, Taylor just gave me the idol, or I just found the idol. Does this change anything for you? But I think for me at that point, Justin and anybody that's interested, like I had put my heart out there pretty intensely. I
Everyone
had made what I felt
fully believed that you didn't have the idol at that point because you were so genuine in how you presented the fact you didn't have it to them.
I was bawling. I was begging for my life. I mean, it was embarrassing. Some of the things that I said and did to try to stay in the game. But I was going to fight tooth and nail. But like, I think after all of those conversations and making my pitch, what I thought was a reasonable pitch, and I felt like I had proven that I was loyal to them and was working with them and was an asset to them. After everything, they still chose to keep Sarah over me. And so I was like, at that point, I think I was just kind of emotionally charged and ready to play that idol and see the shock on their faces, because like I did everything I could and you're not working with me. So this is how it's going to go down.
How was How was that moment for you?
Well, it was exciting, I guess, the adrenaline pumping, but just to finish that last question, also the walk to tribal, I didn't feel like was enough time to actually, make anything change.
Yeah.
But, I'll be honest, Stephen, that feeling, everybody wants that experience of finding an idol, although I didn't find it, and playing it successfully and at the right time to save themselves. Everybody wants that experience, and I have it now. It wasn't as exciting. It didn't feel as good as I thought it would, as I wanted it to. It felt kind of dirty because there were some secrets and lies behind that idol transfer and the idol play. I knew that Justin was a great player and a really good guy, and that his heart was really in the game. And so I knew that I was taking that away from him. And so that didn't feel good. Even though it felt like a smart move and a big move, it still hurt me to do it. Even though he was writing my name down and I was totally justified, I still didn't feel great about it. And so, it was exciting, but it wasn't everything that I hoped it would be, I guess.
And then you get to deal with the fallout.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember watching video of you, Sarah, and Shane walking back to camp, and you were having some very tough conversations with them.
Yeah. I think that first conversation as we're walking away, like Shane started asking me questions right away about when I found it and, what happened, why Justin, thank you for saving me, all of that kind of stuff. And those conversations were really awkward. And I knew immediately walking away from that tribal council that I had made a mistake in putting Justin's name down. It just felt like crap. It should have been Shane.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, that's when those conversations were uncomfortable because that's when I had to start lying about the idol.
Mm-hmm.
Up to that point, I hadn't really been telling any lies. And lying is not something that comes naturally. So walking away from that, being asked questions and having to give false explanations for, the questions that they were asking, it didn't feel great. And then I also didn't feel like I had a tribe anymore. It was just the three of us and they had all just voted for me. And so I felt like I was on my own. And was just hoping that we were merging at that point so I could break away from them and go do my own thing.
On the bright side, you're in luck. The next thing that happens is you merge. You merge at 10. However, there's this fun little twist where the players who voted out weren't really quite out of the game yet. They got to then compete in a comeback challenge. Looking at the field, right? You have you have about 5 people, 6 people. No, you have 7 people competing, right? So you have Nikki, Lydia, Jerica, Skylar, Frank, Kenny, and Justin. Of those 7 people, 2 are coming back. Who did you want in?
Well, I wanted it's funny. I wanted Lydia to come back in, for sure. We're processing that all like in real time, all of them walking in, and that's when we realized that Lydia had stayed out there at Bluff Ranch by herself for a large chunk of time through some nasty weather and the same conditions, and had been out there for a long, long time. So, it was the original connection that I had with Lydia, knowing that she had been out there longer than anybody and that she loves the game and is a fierce competitor. I really wanted her to win and get back in, and she did. And I was super proud of her. I realized immediately after her coming back in that was more complicated for me in my game than I thought it would be, and that we weren't going to be able to just immediately reunite and work together because there was some bad blood. But I still was really excited that she was able to fight her way back in because she's a fighter, and it just felt like it just felt like the right outcome for her to win her way back in. And then, like I said before, as soon as I saw that it was tossing bags and accuracy, Justin and I had talked about it several times, I knew he was going to win his way back in. He had the first round of that challenge. I think he did really poorly, just the jitters probably of the moment. But then he kind of found his form and was really consistent. So I knew he was going to get back in, and I was excited for him too. It was not ideal for me to idle him out and then him to immediately come back in.
Yeah.
But at the same time, as a competitor and as a friend, you kind of have to appreciate it for what it is.
So Lydia and Justin come back in the game. I want to dig a little bit more in Lydia. So talk about this bad blood that was between you all from the pre-merge vote out.
Yeah, well, I think Lydia was just really hurt by the group of original Carlton, as being as tight as it was, not ever really feeling like she was part of that. And what I didn't count on, and this is certainly something that I learned a lot from and want to be humble about. I thought that having been the only person from the original Carlton that really wanted to work with her, that when she came back in, that would benefit me, that she would come back and want to work with me again. I assumed that, and that was incorrect. Lydia was upset with my, I guess, inability or lack of a desire to really put myself out there to try to save her.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't see me make any effort in that sense, and I
Mm-hmm.
tried to explain it. When she came back in, when we got back to camp, I went up to her, and I didn't care, who saw us talk. I knelt down next to her in the hammock, and we, had a long kind of heart to heart. And I told her I was like super proud of her for getting back in. I was really excited that she got back in, and I was hoping we could work together, but that I didn't expect anything. I didn't feel like I was entitled to her her partnership, but that I really wanted to work with her. And I hoped that had an impact. Obviously, how things end up playing out for me in my game, that wasn't the case. Lydia had other plans in her own game to play, and good for her. But I did want to try to come back together at that point. It just wasn't, looking back on it after the game and having talked to Lydia, that wasn't possible.
So in this merge, it's very interesting, right? Because you have 8 of the 9 original Carlton, right? Which is kind of amazing.
It's crazy
to manage. Like, it's everyone but Kenny. You have 4 original Rutherford. You have Todd, Sherry, Chris, and Carlos, right? Walk me through the lay of the land here. What are you seeing when you look at this merged tribe, and what were your priorities coming into merge? I know priority 1 was talking to Lydia, but let's talk me through everything happening here.
Yeah. So I guess, priority 1, having made the merge, was to not be the merge boot. And, surviving that first vote. I wanted that first immunity challenge really badly, and I fought hard for it. Finished second to Taylor. Nice job, Taylor. Sorry I knocked you down. But I felt like I needed that one, and I didn't win that immunity challenge. And so when we got back to camp and we're starting to talk about that first vote, I was shocked that, after all this talk about me being this big threat and everybody thinking I was amazing at Survivor and blah, 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 we can't let Mike get far. My name wasn't coming up. And I was gut checking with a couple other people like Taylor, at that point. Like, I'm not hearing my name. Is this possible? And so when I survived that first merge vote, I think that I guess I was surprised that it felt like I was invincible a little bit. Like I didn't understand, or I couldn't really compute why everybody thought I was a big threat, but then nobody was talking about voting me out when I didn't win immunity. So yeah.
Well, what were you kind of thinking that your way to the end was going to look like in this merge? Was it going to involve rolling with Carlton? Was it going to involve having to flip at some point? Like, or were you just like, dude, we have to take this round by round here?
Yeah, I think I knew that my path to the end meant trying to keep that original Carlton group together and loyal to each other as much as possible, and thinking that I was with them 100%. And I think I felt like, especially after surviving that first vote, like if I was going to make it to the end, it was going to involve me and Taylor probably bouncing back and forth between the two sides a little bit and playing, both sides against the middle. But I honestly, I want to tell you that I had this clear-eyed vision of how to get to the end, but I hadn't quite seen it,
which is fine, right? I don't have that ability. Like when I walked in my Reelfoot merge, I'm like, we'll figure this out as we need to, because I don't know how this is going to work out for me, especially because my alliance was ceding ground at the start. I'm like, oh no. One thing that interests me is that you talked just now about, like, I think I need the role with the Carlton members, right? I think it's important that I get there with the majority of Carlton members. You just got nearly voted out by 3 of them, right? Shane, Sarah, and Justin all wrote your name down, right? Like,
yeah.
were you not tempted to just wash your hands of them, jump ship, and just like go and like try to grab Taylor or someone and go to the Rutherford minority and say, they don't want me, I need a home, let's do something about it?
Yes. I mean, the option was there. I guess this is like one of the central questions that I've asked myself in processing my own game is why did I decide or why did I try to stick with original Carlton there instead of kind of jumping ship? Because the opportunity was there, the conversations were happening, and this is something I need to continue to kind of ponder over. But I felt like the original Rutherford was kind of a mess.
Oh yeah,
it didn't seem like they were, it didn't seem like I could count on anything they were saying either. And, at the same time, I don't know, I didn't trust them. It was sort of like the devil versus the devil you don't kind of thing. Like I felt at that point like I think I sort of convinced myself that the only reason that the three of them voted me out was because there were no other options. And that now that we had the opportunity to bring it back together, we could put all that behind us and try to go back to that original plan of like Final Seven, Carlton, and that I don't know, that I stood a better chance going with them and maybe getting to a point like convincing them to take me to 7 and then trying to go on an immunity streak or something like that. But I don't know, it was just a gut feeling that I could trust them more, even though they had just voted me out. I don't know. I can't make sense of it.
One of the other Justin questions is, why did you choose to prioritize your previous relationship with Taylor, who voted you out in your Home for the Holidays game, versus your own game here? I think specifically with like, you don't tell anyone where you got the idol from. You lie and say you found the idol, and you protect Taylor as kind of a way of saying thank you because she saved your life in the game, right?
Yeah.
Talk me through that. Was it ever a time you're just like, I just need to fess up, bust Taylor, and that will help me move on? Was that something you were thinking of doing at all?
No, the thought never crossed my mind. I guess I'm loyal to a fault often, and there was never any part of me that considered throwing Taylor under the bus or anything like that. When I literally would have, I already would have been out of the game if it wasn't for her sharing that idol. So no, the thought never crossed my mind. I think, Justin, I think to your question, was I prioritizing my previous relationship over what was best for myself in the game? It didn't feel that way. It felt like continuing to, protect Taylor and keep, I don't know, keep that, keep her, I don't know, keeping her safe by not outing her or like throwing unnecessary shade into her game, felt like what was best for me too. I think at that point I still wanted to go to the end with Taylor. So I wasn't going to try to sacrifice her to, improve my prospects. That just was never a possibility.
So I'd like to talk a little about your relationship with Justin at this point, right? This is where the tribes emerge, and you end up having 20 to 30-minute conversation with Justin, just the two together. And this is a very emotionally intense and charged conversation. Talk to me about this.
So this is the conversation we had on the sitting on the log. And so, when we had gotten back, when Justin fought his way back in, and we, everybody's celebrating, we have the merge feast. He would not make eye contact with me. He couldn't look at me. He wouldn't talk to me. At one point I went up to him after, he got back in to say, congratulations. I'm really excited for you. And he just didn't even want to talk. And so I was like, let me know whenever you want to talk, I'm ready. And I guess like we knew that we had to unpack some baggage after all of that. Him voting me out, me idling him out, him getting back in. Like a lot happened in a very short period of time. And I don't know. I think I think there was a little bit of a it seemed like there was a little bit of a strategic opportunity. Everybody knew that we were pissed at each other, or thought that we were pissed at each other for voting each other out. It seemed like there was maybe a strategic opportunity to come back together and then play off of that perception that that we were enemies at that point. But more than anything, and I think Justin would say the same thing. Like Justin and I just really found in each other like a fast friend, and that was like we had hurt each other as new friends. We had like really hurt each other in that series of events, and so more than anything, it was just like we need to sit down and talk through this because I don't, and just explain and come clean and get everything out there because we didn't want there to be bad blood. But yeah, that was an intense conversation and a good conversation because, Justin and I were, I think after that conversation, I think I was as much a part of his plans as anybody else was. Like we were working together again, which I don't think most people could have pulled off and gotten back on the same page after that series of events, but I think we did.
For the beginning of the merge, before this first vote, what % of your time do you feel was spent doing damage control with the prior tribal council, and then what % was spent with strategizing, getting to know, or talking at all with those original Rutherford players?
I think most of it, like my biggest priority was damage control with original Carlton and getting that group like to come back together. And I don't know, again, in hindsight, that may not have been the best play. Maybe I should have been putting my eggs in the other basket, but my bigger priority was like repairing the damage from what we had all just had to go through and seeing if we could get that original group back to that original goal. And put it behind us. So I guess like definitely a majority of my time was spent on damage control versus like actually thinking about what the next boot should be or what our plan should be going into the next tribal council.
You end up casting the lone vote for Chris at this tribal council, correct?
Yeah.
I know the plan was to go for Sherry, but then Sherry used her safety without power. And so the backup boot was always Carlos, which probably was more unfortunate for you because you probably had more of a desire to work with Carlos long-term than Sherry in that case. But how'd you end up voting Chris?
So voting Chris was kind of like a backup plan. I thought that there was maybe a chance, we knew that there was this was just like the idol messing with my head, I think. We knew that the Rutherford idol was out there. Todd probably had it. And at that point, like it seemed possible, even though very unlikely, that Todd or whoever had it could play it on somebody else. It also seemed like a possibility that Carlos maybe had the idol at that point. And so rather than, that idol bouncing and hitting an original Carlton, the vote for Chris was to try to protect against an idle bounce. I was trying to convince Shane in that tribal council to also vote for Chris. And there was some miscommunication like right at tribal. So I ended up being the only one that did it, but that was the thought process there. Ended up not being necessary.
And Ronnie ended up catching the next highest vote. So an idle play would have taken him out at that point.
Right.
What was I going to say? You are one of the players that are targeted to be in the Big Seven alliance that Todd is vocally trying to pull together before Tribal Council, right? It's you, Taylor, and Lydia from Original Carlton. Then it's the remaining 4 Rutherford players. Talk to me about this.
Yeah. So Todd got that group together, and was very, very direct and aggressive in like saying, this is what needs to happen. This is the best course of action. Everybody just needs to like do this and not go off and talk to anybody else. And it was just a very strong play. And I know like it rubbed some people the wrong way. I know Taylor was bothered by it. I was bothered by it. Just how it went down. I think Taylor said afterwards that it was the right idea, but it was just presented in such the wrong way that it was hard to get on board with it. And it, yeah, I mean, again, like that was probably where Taylor and I should have flipped and voted against original Carlton. But I think there was just something so off-putting about the pitch that we couldn't ever really, we couldn't get past that to see how it made a lot of good sense.
So if Todd had come more subtly to you and Taylor, do you think give me an odd chance that you flip on the Carlton majority? Like, is there a 30% chance, 50%, 70% if the pitch had been made correctly to you, I guess?
Yeah, I think the chances would have been good if that had happened a little differently, and if maybe we just had a little bit more time. Like I felt like what needed to happen was that Taylor and I needed, we were being really careful about not having a lot of one-on-one conversations. That was the time where I wish we would have just said, F it, I don't care who sees us, like let's go and talk one-on-one and get on the same page, because I think we probably would have come around to the conclusion that was the best move for us.
Outside of your initial strategy with Lydia when she was in the hammock right as the merge, did you talk to her much at all during this round beyond that?
No.
Okay.
No, I didn't, and I think that's definitely one of the mistakes that I made in that round, was not trying to talk more with Lydia, and also just like I felt like Lydia did a good job of making me feel like we didn't have a whole lot to talk about, like we were good, and that I didn't have to worry about her at that point, but I should have talked to her more.
So we get to the second immunity challenge now. Carlos goes home and Chris wins immunity here. I want to say maybe this was the Battleship challenge.
It was, yeah.
Yeah. This is unfortunately your last tribal council of the game. Talk me through the strategy that happened here, because there was an attempt for a split.
Yeah. It's going into the Battleship challenge, it didn't feel like, again, I think I was feeling invincible after surviving the first merge boot, but it didn't feel like an immunity challenge I really needed to win. It was also kind of a luck-based challenge. I was trying to win it as much as you can try to win Battleship, but I think I finished second in that one as well. Anyway, I lose it, and the plan was at that point, we're talking about original Carlton staying together, and the obvious like juicy target is Todd. Like if we can get Todd out, then that's just one less thing standing in the way of our complete and utter domination and Carlton going to the end. So we were talking about Todd, but there was certainly the speculation that he had an idol. And so we basically the plan was a 5-4 split between Todd and Sherry, guys on Todd, girls on Sherry, and with the 8th and 9th votes in that being Chris and Lydia, who were coming to us and saying like, old Rutherford is nothing. Like it's totally in.
They voted with you last time too.
Yeah. So, this was like me just feeling super confident and invincible. I thought Chris and Lydia were voting with us for sure. I felt like, I don't know. It just I didn't question it nearly as much as I should have. And so, the plan was a 5-4 split, and we were putting, in hindsight, none of this makes sense. I don't know why we were trying to put the majority on Todd when we thought Todd had the idol. But it should have been the other way around, with 5 on Sherry, 4 on Todd. But yeah, that was the plan. And I think that I guess what I was thinking is that I was trying to tell Todd before that vote that I guess I was basically trying to convince him that he needed to play his idol, and I guess use reverse psychology to get him to play it on Sherry.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. In
trying
hindsight,
to be so overtly heavy-handed, he's like, they're trying to play me and make it so obvious
he would do the opposite. Yeah, and then I don't know. When we get there to vote, that classic Survivor mantra that when you feel comfortable, when you feel safe, you're not, and you shouldn't.
Yeah.
In that tribal council, I remember feeling just really carefree. I was joking with Amos about how he never asked me questions. And I remember thinking as I'm sitting there, why are you so comfortable? And I just I didn't take the next logical step to think you are in trouble here. I felt safe. And then, when I got up there to vote, the plan was guys on Todd. And so I wrote down Todd's name. And then I paused for a second, and I think something in me told me that I should reconsider my vote, but I went ahead with it. If I had just switched my vote to Sherry right there, Sherry would have gone home because Todd played the idol on himself, which, was probably the outcome we should have foreseen. But hindsight's 2020. If I had switched my vote from Todd to Sherry, I would have survived that vote, and who knows what would have happened beyond that. But I didn't. I made that mistake, and it cost me.
From talking with Lydia, right? My understanding is she felt very burned by you at this point, and that you two couldn't work together going forward, and that's why she targeted you. And I think it's interesting because if any of the players, you should have been seen as he's on the outs. They tried to vote him out once. He's a person that should work with us. We can reel in. Shane or Justin maybe should have been the bearers of that vote, but you end up catching the flack from just her feeling like there was a connection, that she was most betrayed by you in that first vote out, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that I certainly think that had a lot to do with it. She was burned by me and wasn't I had burned that bridge. I think another thing that was going on there too was that the collective perspective of that original Rutherford group was that, and this is a credit to Justin's game. I believe, and anybody out there can correct me if I'm wrong, they believed at that point that I was pulling all of the strings with original Carlton, that I was the head of the dragon. And so, I think that I was the juicier target for Lydia, who had just come back in, wanted to make a big move, wanted to, build her resume and give herself a chance at winning the game like we all were. Justin never stood out in that sense as the clear leader of Carlton, even though he was, or the target that he should have been based on the great game that he was playing. And that's a credit to his ability to control his own threat level, to control the perception of his game, and to keep somebody like me out in front of him a little bit more, to maybe take credit for some things and paint a bigger target on, my back instead of his. So I think it was personal in the sense that Lydia had been hurt by me. But then I think there was also a lot of strategy there, in the sense that for whatever reason, I was seen as the bigger target. Yeah.
So I have a second question from Shane. So his big question is, why didn't you want to flip the vote to Lydia instead of Todd last minute? Amanda, Sarah, and Shane were so on board that if they could have made it happen with your support, was Lydia in your long-term plan at that point? Why would you, talk me through this? Because from my understanding, this was a very last-minute thing that almost happened.
Yes. So yeah, that had been the plan. The guys, girls split. I remember it being pitched. I don't remember exactly who brought it to the group. I was totally opposed to it. I like at that point, I had promised Lydia in that first conversation after she came back in that I wasn't going to write her name down, and that was a promise I fully intended to keep. Now, I was wrong at the time, but I thought Lydia wanted to work with me. So there was no part of me that entertained voting Lydia out there. Even though it would have been basically the pitch was like, we're talking about splitting this. Let's just put all of our eggs on Lydia. She doesn't have an idol. We know that because she just came back in, like, safe. And I don't know. It's not what I wanted to see happen. So I never entertained it. I didn't let it get any steam.
You've been voted on Pirates of Royal Expedition also due to idol shenanigans, and here again, there's more idol shenanigans. What was going through your head when you were watching the votes come out?
In the tribal council where I get voted out. Well, I think that as the votes started coming out, my first thought as the votes started coming out for Todd and Sherry was we should have put 5 on Sherry. That was the first thing that came to my mind. But then the first time when I saw my name first, or when I first saw my name, I knew it was me. I knew I had miscalculated, that I had been overconfident. And I was just waiting for, the other votes to come. And I was gutted. I was gutted and totally shocked. And I shouldn't have been. There's no reason why I should have been blindsided there, other than my own overconfidence. But I definitely was blindsided, and just totally gutted, because I felt like, even though I didn't have a clear sense of what my path to the end was, I was starting to feel like there very much was one. And if I had survived that vote, I think a lot of good things would have happened for me. So I was already like thinking about the next round and having survived that one. But yeah, that was tough. It was brutal.
So before we talk about your tenure as a juror and your first time being a juror too, I want to walk through a little hypothetical. So let's say Todd or Sherry goes home, you can take your pick. What happens next? Like, what is the next thing you try to do?
Yeah. So I think if, let's say Todd had gone home there, I think at that point, I really would have wanted to get, basically that group that Todd had tried to get together, Chris and Lydia, Taylor, myself, and I don't know. I guess I hadn't really. I don't know. I guess I hadn't really thought about the next step, but I wanted to, if coming out of that vote, if Lydia and Chris had voted with me, even though they didn't, I think that I would have tried to continue to work with that group of people. But I don't know. It's hard to say.
Who would you have targeted?
After that, I guess, at that point, I probably would have tried to start to shift, I guess continuing to try to get people to see how big of a threat like Justin and Shane were. But it, I don't know, didn't pan out that way.
Taylor asked the question. We've kind of talked a little about it, but we can revisit. Do you think you would have survived that round or had better chances had you added her giving you the idol, or do you wish you'd gone about that differently?
I don't know. I don't think that would have helped me significantly. It would have it would have just revealed that her and I were closer than, like Justin and Shane and Sarah and Amanda had known prior to that. So I think I just don't think it would have helped me much. It would have just cemented that I was on the bottom of that original Carlton group. And even more so because it would have put us on the outs of that original Carlton group. So yeah, I didn't perceive any benefit to doing that.
We kind of talked about Ronnie a little bit. My understanding, Ronnie was firmly going to vote wherever you wanted. Ronnie wanted to go to the end with you. I think you were very tight with Ronnie at this point. Was that something you had realized?
Yeah, I think
Mike? Oh no. Well, we made it an hour 50 with Mike, and hopefully he'll rejoin us. Apologize for the disruption here. You are frozen on my end. Hopefully Mike can rejoin us soon. But for all of you who are listening via the podcast, we are taking a slight interruption. This is where I will pitch that I will begin doing deep dive interview coverage with the contestants of the most recent season of Survivor BC, season 8 that just happened a couple of weeks ago. So I will begin those hopefully in the next week or so. So if you followed Survivor BC's live streams, get excited because I will be doing with that, talking to a lot of the players who made it deep in the game and hearing insights from them. Oh, well, now he's formally disconnected. Okay, fingers crossed. This means good things. Yeah, Chris and I had little hiccups during our interview, but hopefully, I don't know. I wonder if his phone just died because he was been on his phone the entire time. What other Survivor stuff is happening? Live Rally Games are also doing deep dive interviews with players from the Can You Survive live game that happened a couple weeks ago. I wish I could tell you more about that game, but I did not watch that because I have kind of been peak Survivor this summer between Reelfoot, Survival Challenge, Survivor BC, the constant stream of Australian Survivor. My gosh, it's kind of a little overwhelming, and it's exciting because I'm going to ride that tide straight into season 41 premiering this fall, which I am probably all of you as well are pretty excited for. Hopefully Mike can rejoin soon. Let's see. Hey, Chris, here's what we'll do. I'm going to send you a link, Chris, on Facebook, and it's a link to the podcast. Why don't you jump in and we can talk while we wait for Mike to rejoin us? We are now turning this from the Mike Heller deep dive interview into the Survivor Reelfoot Variety Hour. So feel free to message other Survivor Reelfoot people if you want to join in the talk a bit as we wait for Mike to hopefully figure out and reconnect. Let's see. There are a couple of Survivor Reelfoot contestants I haven't heard from. Aaron, Nikki, Jerica, Kenny. If any of them are interested in doing a deep dive, I'm more than happy to. We can figure out some time. Thankfully, we have a whole year before the next Reelfoot season, so we can figure things out. And it definitely is interesting having a little time to think about your game and before revisiting. All right, Frank, you're currently active. You get the link as well. We'll just make this full variety hour Survivor Reelfoot style. Applications are out. All right. Chris, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm little Mike.
Oh, you're little Mike. There you go. You can you have the shirt. I can see Mike there already.
Well, maybe Mike can pitch in and we can do this together. But I know all about the technical difficulties, Stephen, as you can attest to. It's that Survivor brain. Sometimes you just lose it every now and then.
Yeah, I mean, we've been going an hour 50 strong, and granted, we were like reaching to Frank is in a car on his way to the movie. Okay, but very very fair, Frank. So Chris, talking to any fun moments with Mike on the jury together?
So I was actually just put this in the chat, and I was waiting for you to ask him about the jury. Mm-hmm. And my question was, and if he ever gets back, I hope he does, was if there was a bucket challenge of of whose jury tears would have overflowed the bucket first. Would it be him or me?
Because you joined the jury. No, you don't join next. After Mike, it's Sherry. Sherry joins before you join the party.
Right, and to me, it seemed like 3 days later. It's actually like 3 hours later.
It's a very intense day 5 of the game for all of you.
Right.
It is day 5, right?
Yeah. So
day 6 actually.
Yeah, I think I made it 6 out of 8 or something. But so I get in the room and I see Mike and Sherry. It's like, who do you hug first? And I just go right over to Mike. I was like, Sherry, we've hugged enough. We're good. I got a lot of healing to do with this guy Mike over here. And then, there was moments like the first 3 or 4 hours before we went to bed where like me and Mike would just break down like randomly and just like hug each other, like go in a corner and like hug again. Because we're both super passionate about the game, and we didn't want to be where we were at that moment. And I remember I remember telling Mike, and maybe if he gets back, you can bring this up. But did you resend him the link, or his wife, or his kids? Anyway,
it's the same. Like, I think his phone might have died. I think because he was on his phone. I think we might have tested his phone's capabilities this podcast.
Yeah. Or maybe he's just like, F it, click. Enough rehashing.
I mean, once you're voted out, the game's over, right? Nothing more. Who cares about being the jury, right? Life is over.
Yeah, right. And I know I pressured you guys into getting this interview together, and he's like, what am I doing? Screw this. But so I remember telling Mike, you were a humongous threat. You were a threat as soon as you got out of the Cracker Barrel. And
Woo, we have Taylor.
Oh, what's up, Taylor?
Oh, go ahead, Taylor.
Oh, I was just saying hi. I literally just got home from my law school.
Hey, it's our newest law school student over here. No big deal.
My oath today.
Nice. Just to finish the story, Mike, I told him you were a threat as soon as you walked out because of the baseball shirt, 1, and 2 because you had cargo pants and this nice Survivor hat. And he just stared at the floor in the jury room oh my God, what was I doing? But anyway, Taylor, how's law school? It sucks.
Well, I just got the orientation, but the real deal starts Monday.
Oof.
So Taylor, I have a Mike-related question for you.
Yes.
Mike has ascertained that he was never going to tell anyone that the idol came from you. Were you worried at all during that opening round of the merge when everyone's grilling him?
I was worried for the fact that, and I just felt so awful just for the fact that everyone was just going so hard on him. I was like, do I tell him that it's okay? Everyone's so mad at him for this, but at the same time, like he said, it was going to show we were a lot closer. So I guess, yeah.
And now the man of the hour has returned to us, and we got some friends.
My phone died. Hi, Taylor.
Hi.
Hi, Chris.
What's up, Mike? We were filling in for you for a little bit. Well, we'll leave you alone now.
Good looking out.
I'll drop off. Oh, so
you can stick in. You can drop out. We're going to talk about Mike as a juror right now. So you can give any insight you want to this part as well.
Mm-hmm.
Great. All right.
So, Mike, you're the king of Ponderosa.
Yeah, first one there.
And you're quickly joined. You have Sherry, you have Chris. I mean, Taylor doesn't join you for a while, which is good which is good to see for you, I have to imagine.
Yeah, I was hoping she never joined us at all, but didn't happen that way.
So, walking out of the game, right? Who did you want to see win?
Well, I mean, if not me, then I wanted Taylor to win. But I don't know. There were a handful of people that I would have been excited to see win because they played great games. But yeah, I mean, if it wasn't going to be me, I wanted Taylor to win from day one, for sure.
So, were you surprised to see Sherry and Chris join you?
No, I actually from after I was eliminated, I'm pretty sure I correctly called everybody voted out in succession. So Yeah, no, I wasn't surprised. I'm sorry, Chris.
No, and you were to second what you were saying. You were vouching for Taylor to the point where you were doing your own little
We should have
Survivor Mike
flipped. We
stuff.
should have flipped. We should have flipped.
Oh well, yeah. This is Mike's hour, but I agree.
I mean,
No,
Mike
I'll
talked about
say it too. We totally should have flipped.
Well, I listened to Taylor's, and I listened to Mike's, and like you both said the same thing, and I just blame Todd for everything, so it's fine.
Right idea, just need to work in the presentation of the move.
Right.
But yeah, when I got to Ponderosa, to answer your question, Stephen, like I was I was still definitely playing as much as I could. Like Taylor was still in. I wanted her to win. So like I kept going in Ponderosa with the cover up lie about the idol. I didn't reveal any of that for her. I wanted her to be able to tell her story of her own game, and also just like I gave her as much props as I could while I was in there, because I definitely wanted to try to steer the outcome if I could, but yeah.
So if a Rutherford player made it to the end, Chris, Sherry, Todd, if any of those three made it to the end, what chance do you think you would have to vote for them over original Carlton?
Like if it was like one of the original Rutherford with a Carlton?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I mean, I think for example, if Todd had gotten to the end with I don't know, with Taylor. Let's say Todd and Taylor went to the end. Like I'm voting for Taylor, but if he's with any other original Carlton, like if Todd would have gotten there, having been a huge threat the whole game, and survived that, like if he had done what he needed to do to get there, there are certainly like a good case to be made that he deserves a vote. So I would have to. I could see myself voting for Todd over any of the other original Carlton if it happened that way. But
so the end ends up being Justin versus Ronnie. What were like deciding factors in your vote for Justin?
I don't know. I mean, like I love Ronnie, and I think that like meeting Ronnie and being able to play with Ronnie and his loyalty to me was certainly a highlight of my experience. He's a great guy, but I think like, and I feel like this was the perception that everybody on the jury had, for better or for worse, was just that Justin had played a more like intricate game, that he was more planful and strategic, and that he had earned it more in that sense. And that was certainly how I felt. As like somebody who loved Survivor, that Justin had just played a good game of Survivor, and it just seemed obvious to me that it was a better overall game than Ronnie's. But like Ronnie's game deserves a lot of credit too, and I think that he just needed to like be able to explain a little bit better to the jury how. Like what his strategy was, how it was intentional, how it was better than Justin's, and he just didn't really do that.
So looking back in your game, are there one or two key moments you're just like, I did X, but I should have done Y? Like you've had a month or two to think about this. Like, are there like any key decision points in the game you're just like, if I could time travel, this is what I'd revisit?
Yeah, there were a couple. When I played Taylor's Idol, I should have written down Shane's name instead of Justin's. That's one. Yeah, and then Taylor and I should have flipped. Like we should have flipped, right there. Those are the two big ones.
So I have a question, Mike. Remember when we were walking back from a challenge and you're picking up these little metal pieces? I don't know if you remember this.
Yeah.
I picked one up too and I handed it to you. One, why were you doing that? And two, that was like my olive branch, but you're kind of feeding me, the standard lines at that point. What was going on there?
I don't. So like, if you're implying that I was picking him up for some like strategic reason,
Yeah, I don't know.
because I wasn't. Like, I just saw a
Okay.
shiny object in the grass. And I was like, oh, look at this.
All right.
It's funny though. Like, I think that's just a great example of how complex a game Survivor is, because like, things that don't matter to me, like, you might perceive to be super important, and you just really can't. It's not a game you can ever just totally predict or account for, because there's so many small moments like that that matter, so much. Like picking up coins in the grass. I don't know. It's just crazy.
That's why it's the best game in the world, like you said.
Yep.
So, Mike, to kind of wrap up the podcast, I would like to just throw some rapid fire questions of highlights of your game, and just say the first things that ever come to your mind. Okay.
Okay.
So, what was the lowest moment in the game for you?
I mean, other than my blindside elimination, I think the lowest moment of the game, and this is going to sound ridiculous, is when I played the idol, and eliminated Justin. It was like, it felt like a low point for me, even though I had just, saved myself and survived, like a critical vote. I don't know. It didn't feel good, like the way all went down. And I felt like, I don't know. It did. It felt like the low points of my game, coming back from that.
But what was the highest point? What was the best moment in the game for you?
I think the best moment of the game for me was probably early on. Like just I can't think of a specific moment, but one of those like in tribal immunity challenges that Carlton like was just like clicking and crushing. I don't know, that feeling of I know it's not like the most important thing to winning Survivor, but that feeling of teamwork and camaraderie that we had on original Carlton was pretty cool, and was
speaking of that,
definitely a highlight for me.
Mike, I think the answer is when you Olayed me outside of the ring, and I did a Superman move, and I made a gif out of it. That's the answer. All right, go on.
I still feel bad about that, Chris.
I told you in my podcast, I said he's smart. Like, I think I knocked you over a little bit more than I should have the first time, and then the second time it was like, oh, well, Mike's smarter than me, so he just like moved out of the way.
I wanted so badly to go against Carlos that second time, and that's what I was planning on doing for Carlos, because he was just like charging, But so it was just like the only thing I could think of.
Frank wanted to go against you too, Mike. So you had a lot of people who wanted to go against you.
Yeah.
Who surprised you the most of all the people you met?
Who surprised me the most? I think I think that I'm gonna say gosh, I don't know. I think Amanda surprised me the most. Like, she was somebody that early on I just didn't I don't know. I was never like super threatened by her. But she like definitely played a great game and knew what she was doing, and outlasted me. I think there were just a couple of players like her that I underestimated, and ended up playing really great games. Sherry was another person that I think just played such a great social game. I don't know. Yeah, those are a couple.
What's one person you didn't work with that you wish you had?
Todd, for sure. I think as much as I was pitching to other people, like, hey, keep me around because I'm a big threat. Like, I wish I would have just like worked more with Todd, and I don't know, just it makes so much sense looking back on it. I don't know why I didn't try.
What have you learned about yourself because of Reelfoot?
I guess one of the things that like really surprised me about this season was how much people perceive me to be a threat, and something that I didn't expect. And I'll definitely plan better for the next time I play. But it I don't know. I don't see myself as being that like imposing or threatening of a person. So like I think it's nice to know that other people see me as like a force to be reckoned with. Like that feels kind of good, I guess. And it gave me a lot of confidence that coming out of the game, that I should have more confidence in myself because other people see those qualities. So that was a nice reminder.
What is your favorite color? Is it red or is it purple?
It's neither.
It's orange.
My favorite color is brown, which I always get a lot of crap for, but I don't know. I love brown. But if I have to pick red or purple, it's man, I have to wear red every day of my life, but it would be red.
Chris, Taylor, do you have any questions you have for Mike about his game, or do you want to bring up or talk about?
No.
The only thing I was going to say is that when you said you wish you would have gone for Carlos, I would have never done it with you. That's one thing that wouldn't have worked.
Vote him out or vote with Carlos?
I would have voted with Carlos. I didn't want him gone.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who did you vote for?
Something I would have needed to be for someone else.
Okay.
Well, that's all the questions I have. I feel like hold on, one more question. Sorry. Taylor, red or purple?
1 second.
What's she doing?
I was never on Rutherford, but I just wasn't. I wasn't a big fan of Carlton. Like I was, but like I never wanted to be Carlton strong. That's for sure.
Well,
I have one more question.
You have one more question?
Mike, how much do you charge an hour for Survivor lessons? Because in 4 to 5 years, I'll be calling on you. Just want to let you know that. So, I know inflation and everything. I'll ask you in a couple years. But.
Yeah, no, we'll negotiate a fair price. We can measure it like in 6-packs and shots, though. I think.
Perfect. I'll forget everything.
I think that's all for me. Mike, thank you so much for this
Thanks for
marathon.
having me, Steven. This has been awesome.
Taylor, thank you so much for stepping in when technical difficulties came in. For all you who listen and survive this, thank you so much for taking this time. This is, I think, it for our 2021 Reelfoot coverage. Applications are out. Apply for next year. It'll be an all new player season, and hopefully you'll see these people here play something else in the future. So
if you've ever wanted to play Survivor, like Reelfoot is a truly great experience. It's like it is what you are looking for. It is actual Survivor. Like go do it. It's crazy and it will change you, but you'll have a blast doing it. So apply. It's awesome.
Injured or not, it's a good time.
And with that, we're going to sign off. Have a good night, everyone.
Steven, you rule. Thank you.
Thank you.